Hello guys, and welcome back to another part of my analog DIY synthesizer videos. So this is just a progress update part 2 to my Jasper Wasp synthesizer clone. As you can see here, this is my latest progress with a PCB. We have pretty much all the ICs sitting in their sockets. I have, if you can possibly see, there's a few spots where I've kind of left out the actual original designated component. Like here was supposed to be, I think, a capacitor, and there was somewhere else there was supposed to be a resistor, which I'm going to try and do a bit of a modification. So that's going to be something I'm going to try and play about with the value with regards to the VCF, the voltage control filter. I had to wait quite a while on these capacitors. They've only just come through, so I've only just been able to make some progress on this. So yeah, so apart from that, the only things I'm kind of wanting to try and get right is the actual potentiometers, the sort of volume parts and everything. As you can see here, that's the PCB there. I made a bit of a mistake. I put this in the wrong way around, and that's just going to be something mine. I'm just going to have to sort of use a bit of solder braid and a bit of flux and try and take that off and reseat that the right way around. And we have the sort of the DIN connections in there, which you can link to other Wasp EDP products. And I have put the link cable on the back there. I'm kind of thinking I might want to MIDIfy this one. There is two ways to go about this. There is a dedicated MIDI board by, I think it's LB Designs, and there's also, you can do an Arduino, micro Arduino sort of modification. So you can sit that little MIDI board in there, which links up to here. So yeah, I've got all the headers on and everything. I'm pretty much ready to go, to be honest with you. I just need to wait for the potentiometers to come through. And yeah, it was pretty much quite a straightforward job, to be honest with you. And I can't stress enough, when you're doing something like this, always make sure as much as you can test your values, because I was finding out there was a couple of components which were actually not quite the value they're supposed to be. So it is always handy to have a tester on board to sort of be able to test your values of your capacitors, test your transistors, make sure they are exactly what they say on the can. If they're supposed to be a PNP, they're a PNP. And if there's an NPN, they are an NPN transistor. You can get a couple which are broken, which will show up as diodes. Bin them, cause you problems, not worth the hassle. So, as I'm just gonna get the test meter, I have actually already previously tested this with all the IC sockets removed as recommended by the build manual, which is absolutely super helpful. I can't stress enough how helpful that is. Even the PCB itself, it literally gives you the values and tells you where everything is, all printed on there. So it's a bit of, you can't really go wrong. Well, I say you can't go wrong. I'd say this is kind of a bit of an intermediate sort of electronics sort of project. So I'm just going to plug the 9 volts DC adapter into here. Make sure it's on 9 volts and no, I think you can have to go up to 12 volts. I want to play on the safe side and keep it at 9 volts. And what we should have is about 5 volts on the ICs from ground to the VCC point of the ICs. We should have about 5 volts. So let's find the ground. I'm just going to turn this on. So this is actually the power switch as well. And we make sure we're not actually, we put this on a sort of an insulating surface, not something which can conduct anything, because underneath there is a lot of solder which you can actually short out by putting this on the metal surface. Very silly, don't do it. Okay, so right, so I've popped that on now. So at the moment I should, if I go from ground to say this pin, I should have nothing. And if I power on, just make sure we're also setting the DC voltage range. And I'll go and take the ground connection here. And let's have a look here. And there we have it. We have 5 volts. Let's check another point. 5 volts. And 5 volts. And previously, beforehand, what I did was, when I put all the capacitors on, the decoupling capacitors, which are the small blue ones here, which are at 100 nanofarads, I made sure I did a test from ground to the plus rail, just to make sure there was no crossovers there, because I have had an instance before on one of my own PCBs where there was a problem with the actual PCB itself, just that one particular PCB for some strange reason, and I had a short. The whole thing didn't work after I populated it. So as a rule of thumb for myself now, I always try and make sure I do that test first to make sure there's absolutely no crossovers, because it could end up blowing up your power supply as well. Okay, well that's all there is to it at the moment, guys, and I will be back very soon, and hopefully we should get to a point where we're nearly up and running, maybe trying to take you through some tests, etc., and we can see what's going on. Anyway, be back soon. Take it nice and easy, people.